Now, whether you know her from the comics or maybe you were first introduced to her through WandaVision, Agatha's got some serious history under her belt. So today, my friends, we're going to be looking at the story start to finish of Agatha Harkness. So what if I were to enlighten you that both the comics and the MCU kind of introduce her in polar opposite ways? And if you're like most people, you know her in WandaVision as an evil witch. Because, you know, she killed a dog. And then bragged about it via musical number.
Who's been messing up everything?
And God, don't you remember? That song was freaking everywhere for a couple of weeks. I mean, a true viral hit. It's so much so that Kevin Feige thought everybody likes the song. Let's give Agatha her own series that's coming out next week in Agatha All Along. And it only took like 50 tries to stick the landing on that name. But what I'm about to show you guys today, you can have a complete different perspective of Agatha Harkness. She has an insane story. Let's catch you up to speed. Let's go and start with the basics, right, for Agatha Harkness. First of all, she's old. And I don't mean like your great-grandma Carol old. She's fucking old. Like 500 years before Atlantis sank, whatever the hell that was. And she was alive before the Salem Witch Trials, where she didn't just survive, but she thrived. Now, before we start there, let's talk her powers, right? She's sort of like a max mage build in a video game, like all 99s. Now, it's later revealed that she gets this source of power through the goddess of witchcraft, but more on that later. Her basic powers consist of witchcraft, which is pretty much just an OP Marvel build where she has access to any spell that you can think of: binding, dimensional manipulation, flying, force fields, teleporting, like straight up using a Game Shark, but like all of Marvel. Now, she's often seen with her cat, Ebony, that, to put it lightly, is a badass that can change into a panther. But let's talk how she got into witchcraft. That was sometime around the 15th century. Now, the backstory of Agatha is at some point she settled into the English colony of Salem, where she formed her own group of witches seeking to practice magic freely in the New World. However, her group was soon persecuted during what would become the infamous Salem Witch Trials in 1692. However, Harkness during this time encountered the mutant hero that many of you guys know as Firestar, who was accidentally sent back in time to that era. Now, back then, you guys have to understand, if you were caught doing something as simple as, like, I did this, then the locals would quickly offer you for a complimentary bonfire. People of Salem attempted to burn Firestar at the stake, but she fought back and later received a telepathic message from Harkness. It was at this point that Agatha revealed that she was actually supportive of the trials, believing that they were a necessary test to strengthen the magical community in preparation for an inevitable war against humanity. In fact, she had even sent some of her own members to eliminate the weaker witches. She then proceeded to invite Firestar to join her cause, but Firestar refused, and it sparked a fierce battle between the two. But after proving herself more than a match for Harkness, Firestar freed several of Harkness's own members and pleaded with Agatha to let them live in peace away from human persecution. Which takes our story right to New Salem, a great kind of Harry Potter-esque place, only made for magical users created by Agatha and co. And this is where she gave birth to her son, Nicholas Scratch. And let me tell you, this guy was a real piece of witch. He led mobs against Agatha. We're going to get to that. But oftentimes, Agatha would just continually kick his ass. Now, she eventually left this city, and throughout history, she would fight in wars for America. That's kind of like the magic Nazi fighter, essentially, in World War II. But now our story leads to where we were first introduced to Agatha in the Fantastic Four issue 94 in 1970. Now, we fast forward from a couple years of where we last saw her, and she's living alone. You know, like old people do. And she's just kind of doing her thing with her cat, right? She probably has one of those jars of candies that all of her old grandparents have. Like, who's eating these candies? Who's eating these? Now, she was serving as a governess, which is just a fancy word for taking care of kiddos. And one day she was approached by the Fantastic Four to watch over Franklin Richards, the son of both Reed and Sue, or obviously Mr. Fantastic and Invisible Woman. Which this whole kind of story is insane. They legit said, I hope she's safe at one point, and like, no big deal, it's only your child. And guys, get this, but on her legit first day, she was attacked. They were attacked, in fact, by the Frightful Four. Which, man, like, Marvel's really cooking with these names. The Frightful Four, what's next? Like the Sinister Six? So this Frightful Four managed to actually take down the Fantastic Four as their antithesis. And, well, Agatha steps in and legit OTKs all of them. Like, one-shots the whole freaking team. Like, straight up OP. And, like, no one really even said anything about it that much. And with that pretty impressive resume for the day, she clearly lands her role as Franklin's main babysitter and even started teaching the Scarlet Witch. Now, remember her juvie-bound son, Nicholas? Well, he returns with the Salem 7. God, Marvel's still on it with these names. He convinced them all to form a mob around her because she was working with non-magic users. And even though she managed to fend him off, eventually this plot leads to her unfortunate first death of, well, being burned at the stake. Now, fast forward, and she was able to come back as a spirit, kind of like a force ghost to Wanda, and was able to help her by using her leftover energy to have Wanda go Super Saiyan mode. And, hold on, checks notes, gives Wanda the ability to become pregnant, magically. So now the babies were born safely, and one day, boom, Agatha comes out of nowhere with no explanation back in Wanda's life. Now, she doesn't come back to be like, hey, let's go get some food, let's catch up, how you been? No, she comes back to tell Wanda that her babies were made from fragments of the devil himself. That's right, El Diablo. Now, I'm going to make a long story short, but Harkness essentially let the babies be freaking absorbed into Mephisto so that she could kill him when he was like 100% complete. And, well, you guessed it, Scarlet Witch was a freaking mess. So Agatha wiped her brain clean, like the old Men in Black treatment. That had nothing to do yet again because, you know, the old lady, she goes back to taking care of Franklin Richards until one day it was realized that he was a risk to the entire world. And so Agatha sent him into the future to where he could safely learn his powers. But he comes back super old, and Sue Storm and the Fantastic Four were freaking pissed and, like, banished her. And that was kind of the last time we saw her for a little bit until we fast forward to Scarlet Witch hanging out with her friend. And as all good friends do, they remind you of trauma from your past and said, remember when you had kids? Which I don't understand where this conversation was going to lead to in any sort of great way. If they're dead, why bringing them up? But either way, Scarlet Witch goes ballistic, seeks out Doctor Doom, becomes insanely OP, corrupted by it, and then just Kamehamehas Agatha to complete death. Now, again, it wouldn't be Marvel unless she came back yet again, and in 2017, we were reintroduced to Agatha, and in Force Ghost Spirit, her and Scarlet, they do make up, so all is good there. And there's a long story here. We're not going to go into it, but they find out where the source of all magic comes from, the goddess of witchcraft, if you will. And, you know, after that storyline, Agatha is resurrected yet again, and so that's kind of where we are. So whether she's a mentor, a villain, or somewhere in between, Agatha Harkness is a character who always keeps us guessing. In short, today, you kind of found out Agatha Harkness has a lot of layers to her. She's been alive for centuries, and with the MCU kind of just getting started with her, I think we're going to see even more from her in the character, especially in live action in the future. And hopefully I taught you something you didn't know today. If you guys enjoyed this and you're looking forward to more of these breakdowns on characters, go ahead and subscribe. It shows that you enjoy. It's one click for you and does a lot to support me over here. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and we'll see you guys on the next one.